it necessary to achieve bhava, prema, to go back to the spiritual world? Or is it possible to go back by chanting Hare Krishna, following regular principles, even though we may not achieve prema bhakti at the time of death? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one whose consciousness is fixed on me at the time of death, he comes back home to me. In that, he doesn't state that one must have developed prema. He's saying that one who's thinking of me at the time of leaving his body. The idea that it's expressed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in Lord Brahma's prayers to Krishna, that verse 13 Upamkam verse, when it says that person who goes on suffering in this material world, seeing everything that's coming as a result of his previous activities. But he is sold out to Krishna. He knows he's the eternal servant of Krishna, and he will always be the eternal servant of Krishna, despite the circumstances which are coming according to his previous activities. He still will worship the Lord as his life and soul, as his heart. He said that person, simply because of his consciousness, his attitude of understanding that he's the eternal servant of Krishna, and he won't forget that under any circumstance, simply by his attitude, he goes back home, back to Godhead. Daya Bhakti, Mukti Daya Bhakti. He goes back home just as for the son to inherit the family treasures, his only qualification is, if he's a good son of course, his only qualification is he has to stay alive before the father dies. If the father dies and he's still alive, then naturally he will inherit the father's property. So his only qualification is he has to stay alive. So similarly, Lord Brahma is making a similar statement, that his only qualification, he's understanding his situation as the eternal servant of Krishna. So it's the consciousness behind that is that Krishna is seeing. It's not mechanical. The consciousness has to be there. That one has to be simply sold out to Krishna, that's all. Symptoms or no symptoms. So this is our situation in the material world. We're a society, we're preaching in big cities, not so conducive. You could go to Vrindavan, Mayapur, nicer atmosphere. But the devotees, they're preaching all around the world. And because their attitude, their conscience, they simply want to please Lord Chaitanya by spreading his mission. The idea is that they want to satisfy Lord Chaitanya, who is Radha and Krishna. That they're doing, even in big cities. It's not that one has to be in Vrindavan, attain his swarup, attain prem. The thing is that when you get your swarup, your spiritual body, when you get us back to the spiritual world, when you're associating with Krishna, you've got all the different perfections. What is the purpose of all that? Simply to please Radha and Krishna. And that you can do right now by your service. It's not a question of what form you've got, what service you've got, and all these different qualifications. The purpose of all that is simply to please Radha and Krishna. And you can do that in New York City, Bombay City, Pune City, by pleasing Lord Chaitanya, who is Radha and Krishna. So it's the thing that's not going to change is your consciousness. So Krishna says, what your consciousness is fixed on, when you leave your body, that state you will attain without fail. So if you're just sold out for serving Krishna, where will your next birth be? Because that place where they're always serving Krishna doesn't exist in the material world. So that you go back to home, back to Godhead. So this is the idea that one who is initiated in the bona fide sampradaya, who's received the Yuga Dharma, the holy mantra, and he's practicing it, he's perfectly situated. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jive Sulupai Nitya Krishna Das. We understand we're the servant, or the servant of the servant of the servant. And we're in that position. We're putting ourselves in that position right now. You're perfectly situated. You are the eternal servant of Krishna, and you've got Krishna's service. You've got Radha and Krishna's service by expanding the Krishna consciousness movement, which is the desire of Radha and Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So factually there's nothing else to be achieved. That is your perfection. So as I said this morning, then when your consciousness is fixed like that, yes, you go back to God, then you associate with all the eternal associates of the Lord. Because prem can only be given by the eternal associates of the Lord, because they're the people who have it. So you have to associate with it and get it from them personally. It's not by your hard work or by your endeavor that you will get any of these perfections. They're all awarded by a personality who has got them. So the idea is that we're not depending on our own endeavors to achieve even knowledge or prem or all these different perfections in spiritual life. You can never know Krishna. We can never know Krishna by our own endeavor. We shouldn't become dependent or over-dependent on our own intelligence or our own abilities. That is not the way. No, Krishna is only satisfied when he sees the attitude of the devotee. That satisfies Krishna, regardless of the symptoms are there or not. So this is what is going to please Krishna, is our attitude. Then everything will be taken care of by the parampara, by Krishna, and then it's quite easy to go back to Godhead. Krishna is not speaking Bhagavad Gita or any Shastra to make it difficult for us to go back to Godhead. It's not a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle. You've got to get it together, you've got to get so much knowledge, you've got to be so expert, you've got to work it all out. Krishna is speaking so simply in the Bhagavad Gita. He wants us to come back more than anything in the world. He wouldn't make a big complicated thing about it. So it's nothing very difficult. He's making it very, very simple as possible, as simple as we want to take it. Because he wants, the purpose is to get us back to him. It's like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives that explanation, his commentary on Bhagavad Gita. He says to Arjuna, the Lord is situated in your heart. Surrender unto him utterly, and by his grace you will achieve the supreme goals. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said Krishna actually finished speaking Gita at that point. You surrender to the Lord within the heart. Then Arjuna, now he's in a dilemma. He's just heard all these topics from Krishna all different types of yoga, Jnana yoga, standard yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, different types of religion, varnashram system, knowledge of the super soul, knowledge of sannyas or tyag. So many branches of knowledge. And Arjuna, now he's telling Arjuna, he should surrender to him the Lord in the heart. He's got to work it all out. He's on a battlefield also. And he's got to get all that together, that Krishna spoke and puzzled and try to accept something of what Krishna is saying, although he's spoken so many branches of knowledge and religion. So Arjuna is perplexed at this point. And Krishna is seeing Arjuna is perplexed. And I'm the cause of Arjuna's perplexity. I spoke all these different branches of knowledge to Arjuna. And look, now I'm the person who put my best friend into all these perplexities. Krishna is actually crying, there's tears in his eyes. Arjuna is his best friend. He doesn't want to see him like this in a perplexed state. And he's looking at Arjuna with so much devotion. What have I done to my friend? I've spoken all these things and now he has to decide what to do. So then Krishna, he just pours it out of Krishna's heart, just by seeing his friend in that condition. Oh Arjuna, just always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your obeisances, man manam avavakvato, become my devotee, sarvadhamam parityaj, forget all the things I said about when I've been speaking to you, Arjuna, all those dharmas, give all those dharmas up. You simply got your perplexity. Just surrender unto me. I'll protect you. I'll take care of you. Don't worry. I'll give myself to you completely, Arjuna. You, Arjuna, and you exclusively. You alone. I promise you this. You're my such dear friend, Arjuna. This is what Krishna is saying. He doesn't want to make it difficult for anyone to come back to Godhead. So therefore he speaks the essence and wants us to get that essence. But if we have still attachments to the material world, okay, then here is Jnana Yoga, here is a Karma Yoga, here is the process of knowledge, here is the Varnashram system. But if you want to go back to God, like Krishna wants us to go back, then he's just clearing away like anything. Just come to me, completely depend on me, surrender to me. You don't need anything else. So Krishna is saying the attitude of the devotee who if you want to go, you can go. But if you don't want to go, then okay, then you can stay. Krishna will fulfill your desires. But he himself, he doesn't want to make it at all difficult. So he is speaking of prema and things like such exalted topics. Bhava, he's even on that platform. So how are we ever going to achieve this in this lifetime? But still Krishna's glory. By your attitude, I'll give you the necessary qualification. So this is Krishna's kindness. He wants us to go back home more than we do. So he, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's given us a very, very simple process. And if we simply accept that point, that we are simply servants of the servant of the servant, and we're serving under any condition, you're perfectly situated. This is exactly the same consciousness they have in the spiritual world. They just want to satisfy Krishna. And that is your qualification for going back home, back to God. Hare Krishna.
If we have a problem that we want help with, but it's too sinful and embarrassing, how do we gain confidence to reveal our minds to senior devotees?
Who's that for?
This is general, anyone can reply.
Only one can speak at a time.
Candramauli Maharaj, you can, if it's possible for you, you can choose to.
You want that? Repeat the question. Nice and clear and loud.
If we have a problem that we want help with, but it's too sinful or embarrassing, how do we gain confidence to reveal our mind to senior devotees?
we have a problem, it's too sinful and embarrassing.
Yeah.
How do we gain that confidence which helps us to reveal our minds? Well, first you have to see that you need help. So therefore, you have to do it. The confidence also is something that more or less depends on the person. In other words, you can't reveal your mind to everyone. You have to reveal your mind to someone who you know you can trust and who can help you. So I think the first stage is to try to understand who's that person. And I think in our Krishna consciousness movement, as a principle of devotional society, everyone should have someone who they can come to for advice, for consultation, for direction, for dealing with problems, and even something as severe as, overcoming maybe a fall down or an embarrassing situation. In the case of where your spiritual master is still your spiritual master is not personally present, or maybe even not accessible, then one should go to someone who they can trust, who is qualified by their understanding to answer. But I think one of the most important principles of this is that we have to have a desire to become helped. And by that desire, if we actually really feel that this problem is a matter of what we say life and death, something that we have to overcome in order to make progress, in order to clear our mind, to free ourselves from the anxiety that we're experiencing, to understand the situation from a broader perspective, or a more correct perspective, we have to come forward. But I think in presenting that to the person, one has to be somewhat repentant, somewhat sorry. That's important, because if you have done something wrong, and if you want to find a person who will somewhat smooth over the fact that maybe it's not so bad, if you're looking for that, then you may not ultimately help you in dealing with the problem. So I would say the first thing to do is go to your spiritual master. And if the spiritual master is not present, someone who is in a position of shiksha. And just reveal your mind in confidence, humbly, without pretense, without any preconceived notions of what they might say. Free your mind from that, because if you have a whole idea of well, if they say this, what will I do? If they don't say this, how will I react? You just have to be like a blank slate, ready to be written upon. Open your heart. Because really, there's nothing that bad except the idea that we think it's okay. In other words, there's no sin that cannot be forgiven. There's no transgression that cannot be rectified. as long as we have the proper attitude of humility and a desire to change. So I think that humility, the desire to change, and the desire to willing to accept whatever comes by way of correction or reprimand. So I think one of the preliminary principles is pray. Pray to the Lord, pray to your spiritual master for help. I think sometimes devotees don't understand the power of prayer, how powerful it is. Sometimes we think we just got to position ourselves a little better or do something different and everything will be okay. That's also a material conception. A lot of times we just have to pray to the Lord, please save me, please help me, please guide me. I can't do it. And then when we sincerely pray like that, we start to see that the mercy comes in different forms.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Pankajanghari Prabhu. In the initial days, process of bhakti feels very simple, and we are very happy and enthusiastic to practice devotional service. We are very humble and submissive also. But after a few years, everything just changes, and it becomes opposite. We commit offenses, point out faults, criticize devotees, so many anarthas popping up, troubling us like anything. So what sadhaka should do? How can we become again like we were in the initial days, humble and simple?
It's called familiarity breeds contempt. You take it for granted, the association of devotees. But when you first come, we appreciate. Even before we come, we appreciate the value of the association of devotees. So much so that sometimes we want to become a devotee, want to live with the devotees. Because there's a great distinction when you're before you're a devotee and for the devotees themselves. So when we aspire to be like them, we can see such a difference. But when we live with them, that difference closes. We start to think, oh, we're devotees also. We were in tilak, we were in kunti. We're performing the same activities. So that the humility should be nourished kept from the very beginning. See, in the example of the temple, when the devotee joins and the new bhaktas, they don't have any position. Right? The new bhaktas, they just do what they're told. Everyone is superior, so everyone is Prabhu. They're pure devotees at that time. Don't question anyone, because they don't know anything. But Srila Prabhupada says that the first 6 months is blissful. No responsibility, you just do what you're told. But after you become a little used to that idea, then you start to become a little intelligent. Oh, this devotee, he's got that position, he gets that facility. Maybe if I had this position, I would get this facility. And we start to, the mind starts to come into it. So that's a problem. But in the very beginning, when there's none of that, that's why it's so blissful. You're the newest devotee. That means you're the lowest. Everyone is Prabhu, everyone is senior, and you treat everyone like that. So we have to learn the art of trying to stay in that position, to see that everyone as senior. That I know what's in my heart. I don't know what's in your heart. But whatever it is in your heart is not as bad as what's in my heart. That's for sure. So therefore I should always respect other people in any whatever the position is. should give respect to everyone. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is recommended in the Shishashtakam. So I would say that it's due to that becoming familiar. I would say that was the first fall down. Becoming familiar and identifying yourself as a devotee and like this, instead of a servant of a devotee. I would say this is the, maybe we should go back to find out where we deviated from that point and start again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This is for Pankajanghari Prabhu. Okay, Jananivas Prabhu. With respect to interactions and association with devotees, what is the difference between protecting one's false ego and protecting one's self-respect? It is essential to protect self-respect amongst devotees, as sometimes one may get hurt.
What was that last part?
Is it essential to protect self-respect amongst devotees, as sometimes one may get hurt?
What was the first part again?
With respect to interactions and association with devotees, what is the difference between protecting one's false ego and protecting one's self-respect?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says one shouldn't expect respect for himself. He should respect others, should not accept respect for himself. So, according to that principle, if you're expecting some respect to maintain your what word did he use? It's protecting self-interest, and that seems like another aspect of false ego. Seems like they're both aspects of false ego.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
How to get rid of it and how to make them Krishna conscious?
Certain things fall into the category of impossible. At least by definition, anyway. Changing parents is not an overnight thing. Sometimes it takes years, and sometimes it never happens. And so, I think we have to respect them as parents, of course. That's, we shouldn't disrespect. Prabhupada said you should respect your parents, but respect doesn't mean to accept sinful or we say activities that are contrary to Krishna consciousness. So they may not understand. In many cases they don't, because they have a certain, just like we just had to play. How is it, even though he was the father of a great soul, still he couldn't understand the position of his son, wanting to take sannyas. This is a common feature of parental, position, that they have a certain outlook. Sometimes it's pious and sometimes it's impious. But if it's not Krishna conscious, then very gently but very without compromise, one should stick to the principles of Krishna consciousness. They may or may not understand. Now, if you're living with your parents at home, it makes it doubly hard. But I've known many devotees who have been in that situation and somehow have persevered despite the pressure and actually became stronger in their devotional service. I think even each one of us who have joined the Krishna consciousness movement have had the similar situations. But just stick to your principles, but at the same time respect your parents. Don't have to agree with them, but at least you can respect them. And gradually, one of the things that I see that changes parents is that when they actually see that this Krishna consciousness movement is actually making my child a better person. He's not taking drugs, he's not engaging in nonsense and illicit activities, he's actually becoming a better person. Intelligent parents, or at least not only intelligent, but persons who are just somewhat have common sense, can see this is a good thing. So sometimes you have to prove just by perseverance, and over a period of time things change. But if it becomes impossible, then I think you have to resort to more severe measures, such as considering the fact afterward some advice, maybe moving on from that association. So it's not a simple answer, but don't compromise. If you compromise, you won't be happy, your parents won't be happy in the long run. If you surrender to Maya, it's not worth it. I've known many devotees who've written me, have similar situations. I just tell them, respect them as a person, don't offend them, but at the same time, don't compromise your Krishna consciousness on any level. Because as soon as you do, you'll feel unhappy, and they ultimately won't gain anything from that. By you sticking to your Krishna conscious, you actually have a chance to make them Krishna conscious too. And that's important.
Hare Krishna. In Kali Yuga, the way of deliverance from the material world is only by chanting of Hare Krishna. Then why is it necessary for arati, worship, etc.? If only Hare Krishna Mahamantra is enough, then I think that this type of ritual is only a waste of time.
Very advanced devotee. Just chant Hare Krishna, we have our full blessings. You don't have to worry about worshiping the deity. Just simply chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day. Hare Krishna. If you can't do it, come to the temple and join in the program. That's all. Well, how can you answer a question? That's perfection. Person only likes to chant Hare Krishna. That's Bhagavat Marg. Deity worship is Pancharachya Vidhi. Bhagavat takes precedence. Go ahead, do it. Perfection.
Hare Krishna.
If you can't do it, come and join us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This is for His Grace Jananivas Prabhu.
Good.
The tendency in devotional service is to be in the front, or attachment to those services which will give profit, adoration, and will satisfy our ego. So it happens that because of that tendency, we don't realize that we are insignificant servant in the hands of Guru. So how to realize that we are insignificant servant in the hands of Guru?
Well, that is the whole process of Krishna consciousness. It's a practice. and involves all the different practices for this purpose of this process of sadhana is for a purpose of putting ourselves in the position we are insignificant, servant of the servant of the servant. There was once one devotee, he wouldn't pay his obeisances when everybody else was paying obeisances. They're doing the Prem Dwani, Jai Om Vishnu Para Paramahans. He wouldn't pay his obeisances, and so the devotees, this is when Prabhupada very first went to America, so the devotee, why are you not paying your obeisances? He said, well, it just doesn't feel natural. And I don't want to be artificial. I came here to be, myself. And I have no feeling, for bowing down and doing these rituals. I have no feeling for it. So therefore it'll be unnatural. So better that I don't do it. Better I stay, I naturally feel, to be natural than unnatural. So devotees, they didn't know how to answer him. So they asked Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, no. He said that you pay your obeisances anyway. He said, and then it will begin to feel natural. But if you never pay your obeisances, forever it will remain unnatural. So by constantly paying your obeisances, then you will actually get a feeling. This is natural. So the same idea is there. By constantly performing these activities in sadhana bhakti, then that real feeling will come for it. It won't be artificial, and it won't be done out of prestige or anything. The genuine feeling will come, but in the beginning we may have prestige and want recognition, but that's a very, very good thing. That I want recognition, I want to be praised, okay, so let me get recognition as a devotee. Let me get recognition as being a devotee. Otherwise, I'll be out in the material world trying to get recognition. So it's a very good thing from that angle of vision. It's there anyway in the heart. The ahankara is there anyway, but at least it's coming out in relation to Krishna. That's a very good thing as a start. One devotee, Dinanath Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple, fantastic kirtan leader. Remember Dinanath? Black. Fantastic. He was a musician. He was just a natural, beautiful voice, so soulful. He would just sing and chant. And he was in India in the early 70s, and he was so good. Srila Prabhupada said to him, he said, your kirtan is very, very nice, Dinanath Prabhu. And he said, thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. He said, but sometimes I feel proud when I'm doing kirtan. And Prabhupada said, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? You're chanting Hare Krishna, what's wrong with feeling proud about it? Like, it's what we're supposed to be doing. The pride is there, it's going to come out anyway. At least give it to Krishna. Then the whole transaction will take place. And then it won't be artificial, it won't be done for one's own aggrandizement. It'll be done for Krishna. But in the beginning it's there. What else can you do? Better to do it with those seemingly faults. And they will be cleaned by the process of sadhana bhakti. Then it will be done in a pure fashion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. When we listen to the lecture, we think that we will control our anger. But actually when the circumstance arises, we become angry. How can we control the anger at that situation? We forget all the philosophical knowledge at that time.
Yeah, anger makes you forget. Jayato Vishayam Pumsam Teshu Sangat Sajayate Sangat Sajayate Kama Kama Krodha Vijayate Krodha Bhavati Samoham Samoham Shriti Bribhama Shriti Brahmsa Buddhinasa Buddhinasa Panashyati. By contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment from them. From attachment comes lust, and from lust comes anger. From anger, delusion, from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material energy. The process of falling down is described in these two verses in Bhagavad Gita from the 2nd chapter. So, contemplating the objects of the senses, we want some sense gratification, and when we don't get the sense gratification, or some satisfaction, or something that doesn't go our way, we become angry. So what is the antidote for that? Detachment. Detachment from sense gratification. So what is the preliminary stage of developing detachment from sense gratification? Is that one has to develop knowledge. So therefore one has to apply the knowledge in all circumstances. So in our beginning stages, we're still subjected to what we say are attachments. Therefore, devotee is conscious and cautious. Devotee is not artificially spontaneous. Don't try to be spontaneous when you're not. So therefore, devotee is always carefully controls speech, carefully controls activity. So when you see a situation arises where your attachments start to become what we say challenged, or you start to feel yourself, then you have to start to reflect and pull back and start to, take shelter of the holy name, take shelter of the Lord, take shelter of the knowledge that has been given. But the tendency is that still, as long as we have these material desires, we're subject to situations to bring them out. So we have to be very careful. The best and the most safest way is to always remember Krishna. But even that is something that comes after a long series of practices and purifications. So therefore, one has to be very careful. So to control the mind and senses is this preliminary stage for practicing devotional service successfully. If one slips, then one can catch themselves and pull back before it becomes an offense. So, the scriptures also talk about two aspects of dealing with problems. One is the purification, and one is the noticing the problem and dealing with it from a day-to-day process. We have to do both. We have to become purified by chanting and associating with devotees, reading these books, attending the programs. At the same time, we also have to be aware of our material attachments and not allow those attachments to pull us into an activity which will be offensive or will put us into a difficult state. Devotees careful. Careful in speech, careful in action. But even before that, be careful in thought. If you're careful in thought, then speech and action will be conducive to whatever you're thinking. So if you're thinking of sense gratification, then you're going to be subject to anger. We can speak a lot of this. One of the qualities of a devotee is simplicity. Simplicity means without expectations. As long as we have expectations, we expect things. We expect people to be nice to us. We expect people to honor us. We expect. And therefore, when we don't get our expectations met, we become angry, or we lament, or do something negative. Don't expect anything, just try to give. If we're always in the mood of service, then we're not in the mood of trying to receive something. We're in the mood of trying to give something.